Happy Monday. I think we start on our backs tonight. So let's find our way onto our spine, something that we can really settle into. Ah, and ah, as the mat greets your back, think about how nice it is to have that support underneath you. Such a magical thing, right? To constantly know that all the support you need, emphasis on need with bold, is underneath you anytime and every time that you need it. We'll give ourselves about 80 more seconds here, just under a minute and a half to settle in. Last 20 seconds here. And let's bring our knees into a bent position, kneecaps point towards the ceiling. And we'll take the arms and extend them palms away from us, fingertips towards the ceiling. And then with an exhale, drop your right hand so that the back of the hand can touch down, reaching towards the wall behind you. And we'll inhale back to neutral. Exhale, we'll do the same thing with the left hand. And inhale back to neutral. Exhale to the right. Inhale to neutral. Exhale to the left. Inhale to neutral. Now relax your arms towards cactus. Bring a little of kind of our just awareness to our lumbar. And as you inhale, note how the belly receives, the back arches. And as you exhale, note how you can contract your core ever so subtly and get just a little bit more neutrality out of the spine. And just follow that pattern for a moment. So inhales, lumbar arches, nothing needed, just happens. Exhale. There's a little bit of a neutral pressure, a neutral shift, but you can make it even more intensified with just the subtlest core engagement. Inhale the arch. And exhale, we land that lumbar spine. Next inhale, just normal. And then next exhale, let's bring that core engagement so we lock in the neutral lumbar. And then as you inhale, keep that core engagement. Let the belly fill, but the core, the abs stay active and the lumbar stays neutral. So that now we're breathing in and out with a neutral lumbar spine. And then on your next exhale, let's extend R so core stays engaged, right leg down the mat. Let it hover just an inch or so above the ground. Inhale back to that neutral knee bent position. Exhale, the left leg extends. And inhale back to that neutral knee bent position. Exhale to the right side. Inhale to bent knee. Exhale to the left side. Inhale to bent knee. And then let's reset. Just let your breath go naturally. You can let your core release. And let's extend both arms towards the ceiling. Fingertips reach towards the ceiling, but we still have that shoulder engagement. So humeral head plugging in to the mat. As you breathe here, choose an exhale, let your core engage, keep the spine neutral. And then with the subsequent exhale, we're going to release our left foot towards the bottom of our mat and our right hand to that space overhead. And inhale back to neutral. Exhale, left hand, right foot. And inhale back to neutral. Exhale, right hand, left foot. And inhale back to neutral. Exhale, left hand, right foot. And back to neutral. Release the arms to cactus. Settling here. Trying to feel the shoulders release and relax. And then let's inhale the arms back up towards the ceiling, fingertips up towards the ceiling, palms away from us again, keeping that nice vertical run of the arm structure. Use an exhale to lock in the core, feel that lumbar neutrality. With an exhale, we're going to release our left arm overhead and our right foot towards the bottom of the mat. Point those right toes and really think about creating expansion. And then release back to neutral. And we'll take that to the second side. Left foot extends, right hand reaches, get those toes pointing. Think about trying to expand that anterior space across the torso. And we'll come back to neutral. And then right foot, left hand. Holding and extending, driving the fingers and the toes in opposite directions as we try to capture some bilateral expansion. And then back to neutral. And then left foot, right hand. Toes point, fingers point. Big, expansive torso length. And inhale back to neutral. Arms out towards cactus. Settle into that cactus. So you can feel the space across the shoulder shelf relax a little bit more intently than maybe it has been. I wanted to say wants to, but The shoulder shelf will do what the shoulder shelf wants to do. So if it's relaxing, it's because it wants to. And let's give ourselves about 30 more seconds just to appreciate kind of this cactus awareness and this nice release across our shoulder girdle. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees into a bent position, kneecaps point towards the ceiling. And let's exhale the knees over to one side or the other, whatever side feels most beneficial and appropriate for you. And then we'll press ourselves up into a seat. Kind of similar to yesterday, which didn't make video, so no one will ever get that practice again. We're going to take an unwarmed up forward fold. So just getting into this space, getting the spine vertical, knees can be pretty significantly bent. And then we're taking ourselves out into a fold. Just looking for a fold that feels supportive, whatever that is, right? Listening to our body, making sure that if huge amounts of flexion are the thing that's beneficial for us, that's what we're doing. If having some more neutral spinal extension is the thing that's going to be beneficial for us, that's what we're doing. There's a combination of the two, like a big neutral spine and then some cervical flexion. Whatever's best for you, let's do that here. And we'll give ourselves about 15 more seconds just to settle in. This nice seated, traditional forward fold. And then we'll walk ourselves up into a stacked position. Bend our left knee so the left kneecap can point towards the ceiling. You can kind of tuck this into as tight as feels comfortable for you. Our left hand's going to plant behind us with the fingertips pointing away from you. And then the right elbow's going to come on that right thigh. And we're going to energize into that right thigh as we rotate towards the back of our room. You can gaze over that left shoulder, but you don't need to, right? If the cervical rotation is not beneficial, you can keep the head more neutral-ish with the torso. You can even go to neutral, right? It's whatever's giving you the best feel here. And then we'll relax back to a traditional neutral alignment. Let our left knee fall out wide, and we're going to fall right down the middle of that right leg for a little asymmetrical seated forward fold. Crafting the best leg shape for you, whether that is a significant knee bend or a flat posterior chain against your mat. We're crafting here what is the best for you. And then we'll walk ourselves up into a seat. Extend our left leg and bend our right. And again, hold that, tuck that as tight as feels comfortable, whatever that is. Right hand's going to come down behind us, right fingertips away from us, left tricep, left elbow towards that left thigh, towards that right thigh, excuse me. And you know something was wrong there. And then we're going to take that twist. The backhand here, something I didn't talk about on the first side, right? Backhand here, really allowing for the elevation of the spine. The gaze here can be whatever feels the best for you. It can be back over that right shoulder or something more neutral. And eventually, we'll release the torso back to a more neutral layout. That right thigh opens up wide and we take ourselves down into a fold right down the middle of this left leg. And we just breathe here. When it feels appropriate, let's walk ourselves back up in a seat. We'll extend our right leg, and one more time, we'll go into a traditional seated forward fold. We take that fold, just looking for what gives us the best opportunity for expansion. And then when you feel right, let's walk ourselves back up in the seat. We'll transition to hands and knees, tabletop. Craft that primary shape for the first time tonight. Think about the strength in your across your shoulder girdle, the strength in the core to keep the lumbar neutral. And let's think about the strength of both of those spaces as we curl our toes and roll back into our first down dog. So we have some good engagement here, some good strength here to press back into. And then we'll walk ourselves forward to fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. As you settle back into that fold, think about how you can land fully and deeply into our fold space. Really concentrating on the elongation opportunity of the spinal column. We've taken that twist, we've done those folds, we've warmed up the soft tissue supporting the spine pretty nicely thus far. And then let's drift our awareness to our sacrum, and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae, coming into our top space and bringing the hands together, heart center. Let our eyes closed for a moment. Just a nice little opportunity to connect with mountain. Thinking about the weight distribution across the feet. And then we'll let the eyes open if they're closed. Sweep our arms up and overhead. And then turn the palms inward, like you're trying to take the thumbs to point out. And get that nice vertical extension. And then release the hands back to heart center. And then sweep the arms up and overhead. And exhale through forward fold. Settling into that fold, getting that big back expansion. Let's plant our hands and we'll walk ourselves back into down dog, crafting our way into that full depth. Let's come down to hands and knees, tabletop. We'll flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Child's pose with a pretty good amount of torso space. So it's a little bit different setup, a little bit different feeling here. See if you can be very proactive in how the torso is responding to the props, which are the legs underneath you. And let's give ourselves about 20 more seconds here just to ease, relax, breathe into this supportive child's pose shape. When it feels right for you, the hands will slide out in front of us. Fingertips will grip into the mat. We'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. And from hands and knees tabletop, let's curl our toes. We'll lift our seat, roll our way back into down dog. And then push down in those hands and wiggle your hips a little side to side. Trying to get some lateral expansion now from all that torso room we've created. And then eventually we'll do one more to each side, bring our tailbone back to neutral, and we'll walk our way forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Settle all the way back into that fold space. Let your spine get long. Drift your awareness to your sacrum. Let's roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Coming into this top space. Coming into mountain. And let's bring your hands together, heart center. From heart center, drop your left foot back so that the left toe mound lines up with the right heel. So we have just a little bit of an offset in our leg positioning. And then sweep your arms all the way up and overhead, palms towards the front of the room, and let's take ourselves through forward fold. Releasing your head completely. Keeping that toe mound heel balance, nice even distribution of weight, even as we have this offset positioning. And then let's sweep ourselves back up and into mountain. Potential for some asymmetry in the back here. We're going to try to kind of stay with this first side. So let's take now from the toe mound heel positioning, we'll go back like another foot. And not in a 12-inch long foot, but in an actual length of your own foot. So you're stepping back just another distance of your foot, and then sweeping the arms up and overhead, and exhaling through fold. Settling all the way into that. Now you may be in the position where the front leg doesn't want to stay straight, right? So remember, you can bend the knee. I did a terrible job showing that, but I did try. So we don't have to have the leg straight, right? We can bend the knee to get into this fold. And then think about if your weight is falling off towards the right side. If it is, hug that back to the midline. And then we'll sweep ourselves back up. And bring the hands together. Heart center. Okay. Again, we're taking our own foot. So we're accommodating for our own personal geometry in this way. And we're stepping one more back. Now getting more towards like pyramid distance, kind of like half to 3/4 lunge distance. We'll sweep ourselves up and then exhale through fold. And once again, keeping the weight from dumping to the right, keeping the balance between the toe mounds and the heels on both feet, and settling and reminding yourselves that you can bend that front knee. There is a perfect opportunity if that feels like it's giving you the maximum amount of space. And then we'll slide our left foot forward so that it mirrors the right. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. And now we may have some real significant asymmetry in the way we're folding. Really think about bringing your body back in line. And then let's sweep ourselves up. Exhale the hands to heart center. Right toe mound's going to slide back to that left heel height. Heel height is probably the wrong description. Heel depth is a better description. And sweep the arms up. Keep the weight in the middle of the hips as you fold. Keep the balance in the toe mounds and heels so we're not leaning too far forward. We're not leaning too far back. We're staying within our fold capacity. We're not dumping all the weight over to the left. We're staying in line and integrated. And then we'll sweep ourselves up. Exhale the hands to heart center. Right foot's going to slide our own foot distance back. And it kind of looks like I'm off kilter here, but I promise you I'm an inch and a half away on both sides of the line down the middle of my mat. So that is an optical illusion. So stay really at your traditional hip distance and then sweep the arms up, palms forward, and we'll take our way into fold. Balance the desire, the benefit of bending the knee. Balance the weight distribution. Release completely. And we'll sweep ourselves up. Drop our hands to heart center. One more of our footprints back. Footprints would be a great way to describe that for next time. Sweep the arms up and overhead. And exhale yourself through this final fold in this sequence. Settling, remembering your weight distribution, keeping that weight from dumping over to the left, hugging back towards midline. Remembering you can bend that front knee. And then when you feel right, we'll slide our right foot forward and settle into the fold. Sweep yourself up. Exhale the hands to heart center. Let your eyes close once again. Think about this balance, bilateral balance, right? So that both feet are holding equal amounts of weight. Both sides of the hips are holding equal amounts of weight. Both shoulders are doing the same. We can make that look like it is. There we go. And we'll sweep the arms up and overhead. You can do eyes closed or eyes open, whatever feels best for you. We're going to take ourselves through forward fold. Plant our hands. We'll walk back to down dog. Shift forward to plank and lower ourselves down to our belly. From our belly space, let's take the elbows right underneath the shoulders. We'll turn our palms down, root those fingerprints down into our mat, and then search for a sphinx that's beneficial. Head can be lifted, head can be down, but there is no sensation of compression in our low back. That's the only guide here. I like Sphinx an awful lot. You have a lot of control over the anterior expansion, the more fingerprint engagement, the more retraction of that hand energy towards your elbow pits, the more soft tissue you will recruit on the front of your body. But I would also say a huge portion of the yogic population compresses their back in Sphinx and loses the benefit of the shape. So just make sure your low back feels really good here. And we'll give ourselves 10 more seconds. And when you're right, we're going to lower our forehead to the mat. Do a little crocodile pose. So there are these two farmers. And one of these farmers has a farm way up on the top of this hill. A pretty average soil, pretty wind-blown space. His crops, they're nutritious, they're beautiful, but there's never an overabundance of growth. On the other hand, there's a farm at the bottom of this valley. The bottom of this valley has years and years, decades, centuries of sediment building the topsoil. And so this farm has always had this huge abundance of nutrient dense produce. The local village depend on these two farms to produce their fruits and veggies. And so these two farms are remarkably important to this local community. We'll give ourselves just 20 more seconds here. And when it feels right, as it feels right, let's slide our hands back underneath our shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, let's curl those toes, lift our seat, and find our way back into down dog. As you drive back into that down dog, really energized from the handprints to the tailbone. And then let's walk ourselves forward to fold. From fold, we'll inhale into half lift. And exhale our way back into fold. And then sweep ourselves up. Exhale, hands to heart center. Let's slide our left foot back into warrior two. So we have our nice heel alignment, and we can even take the arm positioning just for a moment, just to get kind of our general torso positioning, and then bring our hands to heart center. We're going to work just a little bit of torso rotations from this warrior two alignment. So with an exhale, let's twist towards warrior one. Pay attention to what goes on with your front leg. We don't want that to swing with us. So as we exhale back to warrior two, just keep that front leg stationary. And then let's inhale to warrior one and exhale to two. One more time, we'll exhale to one and inhale to two. Blossom back out, full expression. Left heel spins up. We are into crescent, dropping the hands and returning to the front of our mat. Beautiful. When you feel right, when you feel ready, our right foot steps back into warrior two. Get that width. We can take the expansion just to get the torso feeling set, and then bring our hands to heart center. Inhale to warrior one. Exhale back to two. Exhale to warrior one. Inhale back to two. Inhale to warrior one. Exhale back to two. And we can blossom. Right heel spins up. We are finding crescent. Drop the hands to heart center. We'll return to the front of the mat. Sweep our arms up and overhead. And we'll exhale through forward fold. Slide your hands behind you. Give yourself a nice little squeeze. Low back expansion, mid back expansion. Capturing that full possibility of posterior chain expansion along the torso. And then let's release our hands. We'll plant our hands and walk ourselves back into down dog. Come down to hands and knees, tabletop. Lift the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. And we settle here. We breathe here. We ease here. We can compare and contrast our first and second trips into child's pose, kind of like tapping the front end of our movement and the back end of our movement. But most importantly, we just want our torso to relax over the props, which are our legs. Until both farmers have put their seeds in the soil and the sprouts have started to come up early spring. This year, things have been a little bit arid, a little bit dry. A bit of a drought going on. The farmer at the bottom of the valley, he's very confident the rains will come. They always have. And so he's patiently waiting in the shade of his porch, sipping a glass of lemonade for this change in the weather, for some precipitation to come. And he's waiting in the shade one day when he sees his neighbor walking down the hill carrying 2 buckets. And he sees his neighbor disappear out into the forest, and he comes back and he's carrying these 2 very heavy buckets, and he can see water sloshing out of them. And he starts ramping up this hill, and it is a huge hill. And he watches his neighbor farmer carrying these 2 5-gallon buckets of water up this hill and just laboring to do so. And he thinks that's pretty odd. When you're ready, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, let's extend our legs out in front of us, and we are going to head back into a traditional seated forward fold here. And he thinks that's odd, but he can't imagine what he's doing. And then he sees his neighbor coming back down the hill with those 2 buckets. He disappears into the forest. He comes back sloshing water, and he carries 2 giant heavy buckets back up this hill. And he watches his neighbor do this for the entirety of the day. And he cannot believe what his neighbor is doing. He's realizing that he's carrying water up to his farm bucket by bucket, trying to irrigate with 5-gallon buckets. And he just chuckles to himself and says, boy, he's going to feel silly when the rains come. And he sits underneath his shaded porch, sipping his lemonade, and patiently waits for that moment to happen. He knows it will because they always have. Let's give ourselves about 30 more seconds here. And when you're ready, we'll walk ourselves back up into seat. And then we are headed straight on to our spine, where we started class. And for at least this moment, we are just going to settle into the ability to appreciate what we've done. Next day, this farmer in the valley wakes up. He sees his neighbor farmer carrying heavy buckets up the hill. And the next day, and the next day, and on throughout the spring. Meanwhile, that moisture in the soil is starting to dissipate. And this farmer is watching as his plants really start to get susceptible to the afternoon sun. When they start wilting, they of course always come back in the evening when things cool down. He's not worried. He sits underneath that shaded porch, glass of lemonade, just waiting for the rains to come. And they always have. Give ourselves just 20 more seconds here to appreciate what we have created thus far. And when you feel right, when you feel ready, we'll bring our knees to a bent position if they're not, and start some dynamic exploration of knee rotation, lumbar rotation. Just searching for what feels really good. And then eventually we'll let both knees fall over towards the left. And as we do so, we'll just settle in for a little static rotation. Really feeling into your body's capacity to rotate here. And when it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. Let the bottoms of the feet come together and the knees fall out wide for what could feel like a pretty asymmetrical Baddha Sukhasana. Supine butterfly. And we'll inhale the knees together and let both knees fall over to that second side. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. Let the bottoms of the feet come together, knees fall out wide. Should be a little bit more symmetrical this time. We just settle in to that posterior chain, support, ease, release. And bring our knees back to neutral. Let our body determine if there's anything that might be advantageous prior to Shavasana. And if there is, we'll offer that to ourselves now. If we feel like we have everything we need, if we feel like we're ready for some stillness, and let's settle into some stillness here. One day, the farmer at the base of the valley looked out over his crops and realized they had all died. The rains never came. He got out from under the shade of his porch and he walked up the hill. And it was hard, even without carrying water, to walk up that hill. He got up there and he saw that the farmer on the top of the hill kept his plants alive. And that he was harvesting tomatoes and cucumbers. And that the village and the villagers were lined up to get the fruits and vegetables. He pulled the farmer aside and he said, "How did you know it wasn't going to rain? What made you carry those buckets?" And the farmer from the top of the hill looked him back in the eye and said, "I didn't. I had no idea if it was going to rain or not. But when I was a young boy, my grandma taught me something very important. I came home one day crying about how the world was unfair. I start to move our fingers and our toes. And she looked me back in the eye. She sat me down at the kitchen table and she said, 'Sonny, you think life's unfair?' Through my tears, I said, 'Yes.' And she said, 'Well, then it's on you and me to get out there and fix it. We'll start to move our wrists and our ankles, our elbows and our knees, shoulders and hips, neck and head. Jaw, eyes, tongue, entirety of the body starts to move, and we'll utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in back into a seat. Coming into this seated space, getting our spine tall, letting our breath get fluid and our eyes closed. And with your next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remember that grandmother's words? No one is coming to save us, and it is on us to fix it. And see how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Monday. Appreciate the heck out of you being here. Have a beautiful rest of your evening, rest of your week. I'll be back on Sunday to recharge. Love the heck out of you. Mwah.